Okay, everybody must know this. This has got to do with the recent massacre at Sydney recently, where 15 people have been murdered and around 50 are in hospital now, receiving or that have received serious injuries. Now, the condemnation, or most of the what is being referred to as blame, is going on extremism nowadays, and it is extremism, but more so, it's because of a misconception. All right. Now, there are two misconceptions. There's one transgression, which comes from the misconception, or the misconception comes from the transgression of, namely, the the bad way or the evil. And where does the evil come from? Is the question. Well, if you noticed, it's in a lot of these areas that are surrounding. Well, there's a lot between Islam and Judaism. I say there's a there's a there is a coincidence here between these two ways, where you have Islam, right, and you have Judaism. These both refer to the ram or the lamb. Now, if you notice in these areas, that animal is being uh, promoted as slaughter. It is only referred to in respect of great sacrifice and slaughter and bloodshed. All right, you got Jesus being referred to as the Lamb of God. You got the lamb or the ram which Abraham's given in lieu of his son, which is supposed to be given the order to sacrifice by God in the Bible. But this is not in the Quran. But the Quran, or scholars of the Quran, they're meant to be scholars of it, say that it is in there and that it is relating to the Bible. So what happens is you got people that are calling themselves Muslims, but they're not really following Islam. Islam or the Quran, it doesn't specifically mention the lamb. It doesn't in there, but in the Bible it does. And you've got these scholars that are saying that the Quran, the stories in there come from the Bible. And people of history, they say that. They say that the Quran is a narrative of the Bible. But for those who believe in God, they don't believe in history. And they'll just take the Quran and they won't go to say it came from the Bible and this and that. All right. So there's the first thing. And it's namely these group of animals. These group of animals of namely the ruminants with the horns. Those horned creatures are all sacrificed all throughout these religious books. And all the stories around these animals are all of great tragedies or great evil happens. Even the first story of Cain and Abel, Abel being the slaughterman, he was murdered by his brother, right? And then you got all through the Bible, you got the goat and they worship the cow, and then goes up to the lamb, and it only focuses on these animals, right? It's giving you a clue here for those who can understand that, can learn from mistakes, and that maybe it's not a good area to go to. Well, with Islam, what's meant to be Islam, I say people are following Islam, they're not really following Islam or listening to the message the Quran is saying, all right? There's a lot of this sacrifice, okay? It is done more so. I'm not certain if it's because of the culture, but there is so much of it. And the brothers, all they're doing is hanging around kebab shops, and they're eating lambs, and they're constantly slaughtering this animal, and it's wrong, If you really look at the Quran and you study the Quran, you'll see that it doesn't really promote sacrifice of any animals. It doesn't promote indulgence in that sort of thing, And more so, if you're a religious person, you wouldn't be being that way anyway. You would be, you'd be trying to be a better person. You would sort of get a clue that maybe it's not right. But there's so much conspiracy, or so much revolving around that sacrifice at the end of the festivities, or these rituals of the Hajj or the Ramadan. There's so much surrounding that the people, they get caught up in it all year round. It doesn't become just a thing on those days for them. It continues, and then it continues as an everyday thing. And this is where you get, you know, people strapping bombs to their bodies, and they're conspiring to murder people, and saying, "Oh, Judaism's the one that's fault, and it's going to them." And you got people paranoid of the other side saying, "Oh, no, they're extreme," and it's wrong. Okay, so you know This is where I believe and respect. This is where the evil is coming from. The is attacking the people, and the people are being, misled by this or fooled. Right? It's a bad it's what happens in the bad era. So people begin to go the wrong way. Okay, so this is one thing. Another thing which comes from as a result of that is the misconception that this is a person that's name is God, that is He, that people must obey. Okay, now when you get people going around saying that they're Muslim and saying, this person's name's God is Allah and He's the greatest person, and they're shouting this at the top of their lungs, it recreates this sense of extremism because first of all, there's not a person that's name is Allah that they can see, first of all, that they're worshipping. Okay, so there's that insanity right there. All right, you got people of the Christianity, at least they've got a figurehead which they can sort of see that might be false, might not be real also, but you got these other groups of people that say it's He, but there's no picture there, and they're saying He's the greatest, and they're going around, blah, 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 He's the greatest, He told them to go and kill these people and this and that, but the reality is nouns or naming words, you've got to have a picture there to see what's going on. If there's no picture there, you become insane. It's like you can't see anything, So you got these people constantly worshipping this invisible person, and they're not meant to be doing that anyway, because that relates to a partnership with God, saying that it's a He, and biologically, that which is a he or a she comes from places, all right? Comes from DNA and that. So you can't go around, if you're saying you're a Muslim, you can't go around saying that God is He and this and that, okay? Because that's a great transgression. But so the problem is you got nearly every Muslim goes around saying that. But in Arabic, it doesn't have to be that way, okay? The word huwa can be translated as it or he, depending on the context, or depending on the context. Now, if there's no picture to it, it can't be referring to it as a he. It has to be an it. So it's God, it the grace, it the mercy, these qualities of the people within. Now, there's another problem, okay? The problem is that probably 70 to 80% of what's meant to be the Islamic world, they don't speak Arabic. So you got these shooters. They're meant to be from Pakistan, or they came from Pakistan to Australia. I tell you, I've been in the company of a lot of people that are from Pakistan, and they don't speak Arabic. Most of them prefer their culture over their religion. They see it as you've got to choose between one or the other, and they've chosen their culture, and that's why they don't speak Arabic, is because they're frightened to lose their culture over their religion. Now, this is very wrong, okay, because, if you were devout as a Muslim, you would speak Arabic, or you would at least believe it to be incumbent to speak it one day, to memorize the Quran, and to be, a good person of understanding in that regard. But when you get these people that don't say that it's incumbent upon them to speak Arabic and to understand what's meant to be their religion properly, what you have is you get a misconception, which thus amounts to the extremism. Now, you might say, what about people that speak Arabic? There's a lot of extremism there. And yeah, there is, but that extremism comes off the misconception of the misunderstanding of how I was speaking before. They see God as an as a he, not an it. And so they're constantly worshipping this invisible person of a biologically. They say it's not, that it's saying it in another way, but it's insane. The explanation has no justification to it, and they are misled. They continue consuming these animals. They go insane. They have no gratitude on living on the earth and trying to make their life a good life, all right, because of this insanity. And so they're concentrated on death, and all they're about is dying or being deceased, all right, unnaturally deceased of unnatural causes. And it's wrong, And so you got these misconceptions and these transgressions out there, which comes from misconception, or the misconception comes from the transgression. And then this is what happens. People are massacred. You might say, what about the people who are massacred? They're innocent people. Well, I'm not going to go there. All right. Well, maybe I should go there because it's the lesser of two evils. You know, it's wrong. Okay, that people die that way, but it's something that there needs to be. People need to understand it. Okay, now when people die for the wrong reason, okay, such as this, when the shooters or the murderers, they have no reason to kill those people, but there is a reason why. But it's sad. Okay, but people can learn from it and may it not happen again. All right. So that's where you get a person that has no justifying to their killing amounts to murdering. So that person that murders, they can't be forgiven for that. But where there is justification or it has to be in self-defense, then that has to be met. So where you get the lesser of two evils is that the people consuming these animals, you get I always say the people of the bull, they always dominate over the people of the lamb. So you know of the lesser of two evils, you can say the ones that are murdered, they're having they haven't formally transgressed to be given that penalty because it's from a mindless person, but have got caught up in it anyway. So you need to think, okay, for you not to be, what's the word for it, murked. You don't want to be murked. You don't want to be killed for no reason or attacked for no reason. So you got to concentrate or focus on what you're having so that doesn't happen to you. Okay, so that you don't get attacked for no reason. Okay, and so you can live, and these evil people cannot be there anymore. Okay, because it takes two to tango. So that takes two, those words. So it's not all because of the other people. Everybody needs to step up and begin being responsible and start, focus on being fit and healthy and all that. And, for that to happen, people need to have to quit indulging in the eating of these animals. And these celebrations, they all revolve around the slaughter of these animals. And where there's bloodshed, there's going to be more bloodshed. But it's not in any areas which is more so than Islam. For some reason, maybe it's because it's a trick of the evil, because it's basically the most devout religion. Like everybody goes to the mosque, it's as if it's this big trick. But yeah, again, there's the misconceptions there. God is not a he, it's not a person, it's the quality within. It's about that having that and understanding the universe for what it is. Okay, being grateful for life and taking care of the earth. For a maintained garden equals heaven, whereas an unmaintained garden equals hell. So it's about why you're living here and become a better person here so that you can die of natural causes and be happy in the life. It's not about going somewhere after you're deceased, because after you're deceased, all that's going to happen is the next person's going to come along. And that's the resurrection, speaking about everybody as a whole, okay? So when you pass, that another person will be put in your place, okay? The earth's not going to all be destroyed at once. Not everybody can be destroyed, because for there to be life, there has to be death. That means there's always the same amount, okay? There's no lordship without the God, there's no fathership without hope. There's no hot without cold. It is these two things. It's always there. Okay, there's the creation, there's the recreation, there's the good, there is the bad, but these things are always here. Okay, now you need to create. People need to create on the life and make a good life and take care of the earth. This is what it's about. And there's a certain way to do that. And for people that know me, for people that see my posts, they know that the answer is very easy to see. And they can know what I'm talking about, and they can, for those who haven't saw me, that haven't heard from me before, just check out my post. It's all there. It's straightforward. It's easy. All right. So that's why. Okay. The things are happening as they are today. Okay. So what's the goal? Goal is to get some understanding, start being fit and healthy, and eating right, being consistent in that, and knowing what to expect. And these things won't happen in the future. They cannot continue to happen. That's a good thing, is that when the judgment comes, these bad things have to end. Okay, the misjudgment. People got to quit misjudging one day, so they can judge and accordingly and live the life and be happy. And that's what the judgment is all about. Okay? It's not about this daunting bad day. No, it's about the good day when people begin to realize, and that has to happen. Okay, as a whole, because there's a big time frame here that everything's working to. So for that good to be, the bad has to go one day. So fair's fair. Everybody can be happy and live appropriately. So that's what's going on, and all the best, everybody, and happy living and being healthy and understanding and being strong. Fighting this properly in here. All right. Okay. See ya.